This you have to watch. We wonder why things happen, and then we see right wing media, and then we realize why. Fox News propagandist Tucker Carlson went on a rant last night in which he minimized what happened on January 6th, the day of the Trump riots, of course. But he also says, in many ways, the rioters were correct. They were correct in why they were there. But the reasons he gives for why the rioters were correct are reasons none of the rioters actually knew about when they rioted on January 6th. I'm getting ahead of myself, and we're going to get to that in a second. This is so upside down and backwards. It really requires almost like trapeze artist contortionism to even explain what Tucker is doing. So let's see what Tucker says, and then we will talk about it.
What was January 6th? Well, there was destruction of property, which we're totally opposed to. But what motivated it? Why were all those people there? Well, for the most part, a year later, it's very clear January 6th was essentially what it appeared to be. Thousands of ordinary American citizens, voters, people who believe in our democracy far more fervently than Liz Cheney ever has, came to Washington because they sincerely believed democracy had been thwarted. They believe the presidential election was unfair, and they have a right to believe that. And by the way, in many ways, they were correct. The presidential election was unfair, and you don't have to get into anything about voting machines to believe that. Consider the facts that we know. As Election Day approached, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T shut down the Trump campaign's ability to send text messages. And then Google, this has never even been reported, but it is widely known, Google prevented the Trump campaign from raising money over Gmail. There's no precedent for that. The Trump re-election campaign lost millions in donation. That was the whole point of it. So the most powerful companies on planet Earth, heavily regulated by the government, benefiting from government contracts, swung behind Joe Biden and tried to stop Donald Trump, the sitting president, in his tracks. Is that fair?
Okay, so let's talk each piece of that through. They were regular people who thought democracy had been thwarted, and since they believed democracy had been thwarted, they were right to be there. Understand that this isn't like self-defense. If you sincerely thought your life was at risk, you were able to legally use any force necessary. Even if your life wasn't actually in danger, if you believed it. The fact that they fell for conspiracy theories about the election and traveled to DC and followed Trump's directions and went to the Capitol and did all the stuff, that doesn't make them innocent because they believed the election had been stolen, because this wouldn't even be the way to handle it if that were true. Now, then Tucker slips in a pretty slick move, which is he says they have a right to believe that. That's a linguistic trick. No one's denying that the rioters have a right to believe the election was stolen. They have a right to believe Joe Biden died 10 years ago and it's an electronic cyborg replacement. They have a right to believe whatever they want. They're not being charged for what they believe. Believing isn't a crime here. The charges are for the laws that they broke. So that's a red herring that Tucker throws in. But then the meat of this segment is Tucker introducing totally different reasoning for how they were correct. And what do you mean they were correct? Well, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T shut down Trump's texting, Tucker says. Google prevented Trump from raising money over Gmail. These items were not a factor in the rioters being there. They weren't being discussed at the time. This is a post facto rationalization that Tucker has come up with. But more importantly, are those claims even true? And the answer is no. Unsolicited campaign texts to people who haven't opted into them are legally dubious. It's a murky area because sometimes campaigns will say, well, we have voter registration data. They've registered to vote, and so they are people that are valid for us to target. Whereas others say, no, they haven't opted into your communications. You can't text them. And what happened the summer before the election was that the Trump campaign was clashing with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Third-party screening tools were flagging Trump's unsolicited texts to people as spam. Trump's campaign was arguing, we can send these. We are being silenced. T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon are saying unsolicited mass text aren't allowed, and we have third-party tools in place to detect that. It was a murky legal area, and the idea that this was Trump's campaign being silenced is just completely wrong. Lastly, Tucker said Google prevented Trump from raising money over Gmail. I couldn't even find information on that. The closest thing I found is that at the peak of the campaign, some of you who were on these lists might remember, the Trump campaign was sending out fundraising emails every 90 or 120 minutes. Eric Jr., Don Trump, I'm sorry, Eric, Don Jr., Trump, we need your money, we need your money. They appear to have started getting caught in Gmail's spam filters. That's what happened. And because of their frequency, they were going to spam and being blocked on that basis. Maybe there's more to that, but I have found no evidence at all that Gmail blocked Trump from raising money. It seems they were sending such a high rate of email that it started triggering the spam filters on Gmail. So not only is Tucker wrong in that these weren't the reasons the rioters were there, Tucker is wrong that these things even took place. Lie upon distortion, upon deception, upon lie.
The only streaming service that specializes in documentaries is CuriosityStream, and you can get CuriosityStream, one of our sponsors, for just $15 a year when you use my link below. This will give you access to the world's best selection of documentary films. There's always so many that you can't get on Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon. I just finished watching a tremendous film, The CEO of Sinaloa, a region of Mexico. It's about El Chapo. Fascinating, fascinating. CuriosityStream is a must-have if you love documentaries. They always have the best and newest titles. They're always adding new things to the library. And you can watch on all of your devices. They've got documentaries on every topic you can imagine. CuriosityStream is giving my audience 25% off a subscription, making it just $15 a month. Go to curiositystream.com/Pacman. The link is down below.